TCAS, the Traffic Alert and Collision Avoidance System, helps you locate and avoid other aircraft flying near you. When another aircraft represents a potential collision hazard, TCAS will provide you with guidance to perform a vertical flight maneuver to avoid a collision. TCAS builds a volume of protective airspace around your aircraft, defining a potential collision area and a caution area. TCAS interrogates transponder-equipped aircraft, locates them and tracks them to determine whether or not they represent a potential collision hazard. The TCAS controls are located on the ATC TCAS control panel, which controls both the ATC transponder and TCAS. TCAS visual indications are displayed on the vertical speed indicator, or VSI. This is an electronic instrument capable of displaying vertical speed and TCAS indications simultaneously. The TCAS computer contains a receiver transmitter which interrogates other aircraft just as a ground-based ATC station does. The interrogation rate is normally once every second. Each transponder-equipped aircraft within range replies to these interrogations, thus establishing an airborne transponder link. The transponder replies are used by TCAS to locate and track the range, bearing, and relative altitude of other aircraft. This enables TCAS to compute a projected flight path for another aircraft relative to your own flight path and determine the CPA, or closest point of approach, of the other aircraft. If the CPA lies on or within the collision area, the other aircraft represents a potential collision hazard. When the other aircraft has closed to within 35 to 45 seconds of the CPA, TCAS issues a TA, or Traffic Advisory. This alerts you to the presence of the other aircraft and helps you to make visual contact with it. When the other aircraft is within 20 to 35 seconds of the CPA, it becomes a definite collision threat. TCAS issues an RA, or Resolution Advisory. This commands the vertical maneuver action that must be taken to avoid a collision. TCAS can detect aircraft coming from any direction. Practically speaking, TCAS can track as many aircraft as are within range. TCAS shows you where each is and whether or not it represents a potential collision hazard. Aircraft without a transponder are invisible to TCAS. You don't know where they are. This table indicates TCAS capability with respect to other aircraft. If the other aircraft does not have a transponder, TCAS cannot locate it. If the other aircraft has a Mode A transponder, no altitude reporting. TCAS can issue a TA, a Traffic Advisory, alerting you to its presence and location. Because TCAS receives no altitude information from the other aircraft, it cannot issue an RA, a Resolution Advisory. If the other aircraft has a Mode C transponder, altitude reporting. TCAS is able to issue both a TA and an RA. If the other aircraft has a Mode S transponder, it also has TCAS. Your TCAS is not only able to issue a TA and an RA, but through the S transponder link, it's able to coordinate your vertical maneuver with that of the other aircraft. As we've seen, the TCAS visual indications are shown on the VSIs, and TCAS shares its control panel with the ATC transponder. The TCAS computer is located in the main equipment center. There are two TCAS antennas, one on the top of the forward fuselage and one on the bottom. The TCAS computer is connected to the two antennas. These are directional antennas which enable TCAS to determine bearings to other aircraft. The control panel and Mode S transponders are connected to the computer. The computer provides visual indications to the VSIs and oral enunciations. The electronic VSIs on the pilot's instrument panels display standard vertical speed indications, and if TCAS is on, this is combined with the TCAS visual display.
Traffic.
TCAS has detected another aircraft and issued a TA. On the VSI traffic display, the intruder is represented by an amber circle. Now let's look at the different symbols in the VSI traffic display. The open diamond represents an aircraft flying within 2,700 feet of your own altitude, but which does not represent a potential collision hazard. It's classed as other traffic. The solid diamond is an aircraft which is within 1,200 feet of your altitude and less than 6 miles away, but does not represent a hazard. It's classed as proximate traffic. When an aircraft is 35 to 45 seconds from the CPA, it becomes an intruder, and TCAS issues a TA. The symbol is a solid amber circle. When it is close to within 20 to 35 seconds, it is a definite threat, and TCAS issues an RA. The symbol is a red square. Each symbol has a data tag showing the relative altitude of other aircraft, and whether it's climbing or descending. Relative altitude is shown in hundreds of feet. It's above the symbol with a plus sign if the other aircraft is above you, and below the symbol with a minus if the other aircraft is below you. If the other aircraft is at the same altitude as you are, 2 zeros are shown, above the symbol if it has descended to your altitude, and below if it has climbed. They are also below the symbol if the other aircraft was already flying at your altitude when it was first detected by TCAS. In addition to relative altitude, an arrow indicates climbing or descending at more than 500 feet per minute. Level flight is indicated by the absence of the arrow. Let's look at the TA again. This intruder is about 5 miles in front of you, 1,000 feet above you and descending. It's less than 45 seconds from the CPA. Also, there is proximate traffic at 10 o'clock, 3 miles away and 1,100 feet below you. An RA is also displayed by red and green bands on the vertical speed scale. Red indicates vertical speed that must be avoided. Green indicates safe vertical speed that must be acquired. You must fly to the green. The visual display is accompanied by an appropriate oral command.
Climb, crossing, climb. Climb, crossing, climb.
TCAS has computed that the vertical maneuver which provides you with the safest separation is to acquire and then maintain at least 1,500 feet per minute climb, during which you cross through the other aircraft's altitude. TCAS expects you to initiate this climb maneuver within 5 seconds after the RA has been issued. The vertical maneuver must be performed manually because the autopilot cannot acquire the climb rate quickly enough. Do not accept ATC instructions to disregard an RA. TCAS has more accurate information about the developing situation than ATC has. To review, when an RA is issued, you must, within 5 seconds, disengage the autopilot and initiate a manual vertical maneuver that takes your vertical speed pointer out of the red and into the green. You must keep the pointer out of the red for the duration of the RA. After issuing an RA, TCAS continues tracking the other aircraft. Should the other aircraft now maneuver vertically, TCAS may calculate that the initial RA was not enough to maintain adequate separation. An additional RA is then issued commanding either increased action or reversed action, whichever provides greatest separation. Response to this additional RA must be initiated within 2.5 seconds.
Increase climb. Increase climb.
This is an increase action RA commanding you to increase your rate of climb to at least 2,500 feet per minute. Fly to the green. You must initiate this within 2.5 seconds.
Descend. Descend now. Descend. Descend now.
This is a reverse action RA, commanding you to reverse your vertical maneuver from climb to descent. Fly to the green, at least 1,500 feet per minute down. Initiate within 2.5 seconds.
Clear of conflict.
TCAS issues clear of conflict when the collision hazard no longer exists. The RA downgrades to proximate traffic. Return to your ATC clearance altitude promptly and smoothly, and notify ATC as soon as workload permits. The preceding 2 RAs were corrective RAs. That is, a vertical maneuver was needed to acquire and then maintain a safe vertical speed.
Monitor vertical speed. Monitor vertical speed.
Here is the other type of RA, a preventive RA. In this case, no vertical maneuver is needed. You must fly to keep the pointer out of the red. The visual indications are as shown, and the oral command is to monitor vertical speed. Since no maneuver is necessary, you may judge it best to leave the autopilot engaged.
Traffic. Traffic.
TCAS has issued a TA. Another aircraft has closed to within 35 to 45 seconds of the CPA. But it's still more than 6.5 miles away, so it's off scale in your VSI traffic display. Only the bottom half of the TA symbol and no data tag is shown. The data tag is visible under the half TA symbol only when the other aircraft is below you. The aircraft has closed to within 6.5 miles, so the whole symbol with its data tag is in view. If TCAS is unable to determine the bearing of another aircraft, it cannot display it as other traffic or proximate traffic. However, TCAS is still able to calculate distance, relative altitude, and closure rate, and will issue a TA and an RA when the other aircraft is close enough.
Traffic. Traffic.
The other aircraft is 35 to 45 seconds away, but TCAS doesn't know in which direction it's located. The TA is shown by the amber text under the aircraft symbol. TA 5.5 miles, 800 feet below, and climbing.
Descend. Descend. Descend.
When the other aircraft is close to 20 to 35 seconds, an RA is issued. The text under the aircraft symbol is a red RA followed by distance and an altitude data tag. The normal RA visual display on the VSI scale indicates safe and unsafe vertical speed.
Traffic. Traffic.
If the other aircraft is not reporting altitude, there is no data tag on the other aircraft symbol. TCAS is able to issue a TA, but not an RA. TA-RA is the normal operating mode. TCAS issues TAs and RAs as appropriate. TA only. In this mode, TCAS issues TAs only. RAs are inhibited. This mode prevents undesirable RAs when intentionally flying close to another aircraft. For example, during closely spaced parallel approaches. TA only is enunciated in upper left corner of the VSI. When the mode selector is in standby, TCAS is off. The TCAS test is covered in the operating lesson. TCAS indicates that TCAS is not operational. This could be due to failure of TCAS itself or of the transponder. VSI indicates failure of the VSI. It cannot display RAs and it cannot display vertical speed information. The vertical speed pointer is removed from view. Finally, let's look at some TCAS limitations. When TCAS issues an RA, it expects you to initiate the required action within 5 seconds. Its calculations are based on this. Response to increase action and reverse action RAs must be initiated within 2.5 seconds. Do not accept ATC instructions to disregard an RA. TCAS operation is limited when flying at low radio altitude, for example during approach or following takeoff. All RAs are inhibited below 400 feet radio altitude descending and below 600 feet climbing. Increased descent RAs are inhibited below 1,450 feet descending or climbing. TA oral alerts are inhibited below 400 feet. TCAS cannot monitor aircraft performance. In some cases, you may not have enough climb performance to follow a climb or increased climb RA without flying into stall warning or buffet. TCAS does not know about this. No, try again. The correct response. No, try again. The correct response is highlighted. No, try again.